Everyone has some sort of a closet that's become too small. A closet is no place to live, and I want to support as many people as I can in stepping out of that prison into the fullness of life that's waiting for them on the other side of that closet door. I'm Nancy Shadlock from Centered Life Coaching. Join me in listening to these Coming Out Chronicles. Get curious about your story, and then see what good things are waiting for you on the other side of your closet door. Today's guest has such incredible energy. I think you'll feel the contagiousness of it, and that it's exciting to step into our brave lives and do what we're called to. And I love her take on the coming out story. So enjoy. Heather Vickery, it's so awesome to have you on the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Nancy.
I think we might as well just jump right in.
Let's just do it.
I'm curious to hear what coming out story you're going to share with us today.
So I love telling the story because usually the mouths just drop. And I don't know that it's terribly unique, but there's one little area that is particularly, let's go with hilarious 8 years later. So I did not come out until I was 38. I had been married for a decade. I had 4 kids. And I always joke that I didn't find the lesbians in college. Maybe it'd been a different story if I'd found them in college, but I didn't, which turned out okay because I wouldn't change my life, right? I wouldn't change where I am today for any reason. And I try to describe it as, girls love each other. Like girls talk, oh, she's so hot. Oh, she's so whatever. Right. And in my brain, I didn't know that the way I processed that was different than the way the straight girl next to me processed it until I was much, much older. And when I started to figure it out, I was like, okay, maybe I'm just curious, whatever. I was married. What was I going to do about that? And then it became very clear I was married to the wrong gender. So there's a lot that happened in between there, but the actual coming out, I still can't believe this is my technology. It is not my friend. The actual coming out, I'd actually already come out to my husband. I'd come out to a couple of friends bit by bit. And I just was still feeling really shitty about everything. And my mom was needling me. My mom doesn't live in town. She was in town for dinner. We were out together. She's pushing me. And I finally just blurted it out to her, to which her response was, I'm on his side, meaning my then husband. She's reversed her stance since then, but that was tough, right? So we got into a huge argument. We were fighting. She threatened to take my kids away, or to try, all of these ridiculous things. And I happened to read an article that said, a blog post, why you shouldn't be afraid to come out. And she was responding. The author was responding to the people who commented. And I desperately needed anyone. And so I responded with the whole thing. I'm a 38-year-old mother of 4 who does this professionally. And I had the whole story. And I didn't know that it was connected to my Facebook account. Oh. So I quickly realized that it was attached to my account and I deleted it off of my page. But what I didn't know until the next morning was that because I left the comment up, it still showed up in everybody's timeline. So I actually woke up. My ex and I had been living in separate rooms for a long time. He gently came in and we were on very good terms at the time. And he came in and he's like, hey, did you mean to put this on Facebook? And I was like, no. And I looked at my phone and I had hundreds of texts and calls and DMs. And it was like, boom. I mean, I just ripped the bandaid right off. And it turns out it was great. There was one person in my whole life that, I stopped existing to her, but everybody else was like, wait, what? And some people were like, I'm not surprised. It ran the gamut, but it was legitimately terrifying to accidentally come out on Facebook. I don't actually encourage it to go down like that. That's that's my coming out story.
Take in all at once.
It was done then. Okay, well, here we go.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And how did things play out with your mom?
So it took my mom a minute. After years of processing and thinking about it, I really think her biggest issue was she was afraid I would be harmed, particularly by people we loved. And then she was afraid she would be harmed by the people that we loved. And the biggest surprise of all, I think, was that no one in my Midwest redneck family had any problems. They all, literally, every one of them said, well, you're ours. We love you. Like, you know, they didn't really understand. I didn't really care if they understood. And they were fine. And nobody was hurtful or hateful. And my dad, who's super religious, my parents divorced when I was an infant. He said, well, the Bible tells me it's not right, but you're my baby and I love you. So I guess I don't really need to understand. Like, nope, you don't. So my mom's like, wait, so everybody's fine? And I'm the asshole here. And so she started to loosen up. By the time she found out, but I shouldn't say that. A couple months after she found out, I'd gotten together with my now partner. We've been together for 7.5 years. And she really tried to hate her hard. It was very awkward for several months. And then my partner and I went to a family wedding. And my aunt, who is super Catholic, asked my mom, have you ever had a real conversation with Bernadette? And my mom said, well, I try not to. And my aunt said, well, she's a lovely woman. You should try to have a conversation with her. And my mom's like, I'm the asshole, right? And so she made an effort, and they love each other now. They text recipes, and I saw this and thought of you, and it's all worked out. And my mom would actually tell you now that the best thing that ever happened to her life was me coming out, because she was able to see that we can show up, and by we, I mean collectively, as ourselves, honestly and authentically, and the world is not here to hurt us. It's here to hold us. Yeah. And that's the first time she's ever experienced that in her life.
Yeah. And we get to personally make that decision.
Yeah.
And like set ourselves apart from whatever the herd mentality might do. Be like, okay, like, let me listen into, for me, how am I going to show up in this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's also really just fascinating with her. I spent all of my life just trying to be good enough for her to be really proud of me. And I was just always short. Could never, I would say it was the perfect child who could never get anything right. Oh, you're so pretty. Why would you do your hair like that? Or you're so smart. How could you get that great? You know, whatever it was like, oh, you're great. Boom, you know? Yeah. And somehow when I stopped caring, and this is life, right? When I stopped trying so hard to please her and I started trying to please me, she was proud. Maybe because she'd never been able to do it for herself. Maybe seeing me do it was the manifestation of her dreams for herself and for me. I don't know. Yeah.
And this all translates into the work that you're doing now, hey? Like
it does.
Share kind of the coming out story of your business too, because you've done a big switch there.
I have done a big switch there. So I've been an entrepreneur nearly all of my adult life. I realized very quickly out of college that while I worked well with people, I did not work well for them. And I'm the child of entrepreneurs. And I had enough experience that I decided to give it a go. And I started an event and wedding planning firm, which I am so proud to say I built into a really high-end luxury planning firm based here in Chicago. But as I was going through my own major life transformation, burning all my shit to the ground, coming out, getting a divorce, all of that, I recognized that this job did not fill me up. It was clearly not my life's purpose. It wasn't going to have an impact really in the way that I wanted to have an impact. And I started paying attention to what was happening. This is sort of the precipice of, I tell people that I really look at the signs from the universe. I really sit with it and what is in this for me and what am I supposed to learn from this? And I realized that I was already coaching, that people were coming to me. They were emailing me, texting me, stopping me at an event. I want to try this. I want to do this. I think you can help. Will you talk to me? I think you can help. Right. And so I decided I was just going to put a name on it and give it a go. And fortunately, the wedding community held me really beautifully. They were like, yeah, yes, you should be doing this. And they invited me in to speak at their conferences and their events, and they hired me as their coach. And it just grew from there. And now I like to say that Brave is my business. So choosing this moment of embracing my fear and making brave choices versus trying to pretend I wasn't scared and hiding, allowed me to create what's now called my Brave Method. I have a book coming out about it. It's my coaching platform to help other people leverage their fear into intentional bravery. And my own podcast, which is called The Brave Files, where I interview people who've stepped out of fear and into bravery in every imaginable way. And I'm on a mission to create a global revolution of everyday brave, because when we make brave choices, whether they're really big ones or really small ones, and we know they're brave, we start to make bigger choices and with bigger wins and payoffs. And it's contagious to everyone around us. And it's just really fun. It's just really fun.
How has that living brave been contagious to your mom?
It's absolutely contagious to my mom, because she can now say things like, the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life is my daughter coming out. She never would have imagined
in her
being able
of friends that, you know,
anywhere
be there. Yeah.
She'd say it to anybody and happily, just recently had a chat with her about not spending so much time worrying about what other people think. But my mom, and I want to tell her stories for her, but she grew up in a pretty physically and emotionally abusive family. And she did have to worry about what everybody else was thinking and doing all the time. It was a survival mechanism. It's hard to unwire that in your late 60s, you know? So I think embracing me and allowing me to not have to carry her burdens there is about as brave as she's going to get with all of it. But she feels it. She's proud. You know, we got to have a conversation. She was in town last weekend, and we got to have a conversation about what I'm doing to build a 7 and 8 figure business. And she's like, I can't even believe you. I can't get over you. Like, you've created all of this out of nothing. And I'm wildly impressed by you, which is cool.
Without the underpinning, but
without the underpinning. Yeah. There was no secret backslap at all. It was really cool.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to share a little Cole's notes of the Brave Method?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the book itself is called Fuck Fearless, Making the Brave Leap. And it's because I really want people to let go of this notion that we want to be fearless, because we don't really want to be fearless. That's really not the goal. It's for sociopaths and 3-year-olds, right? When you're fearless, you take unnecessary risks that you haven't vetted. You're not thoughtful and intentional. Embracing your fears and choosing bravely is about getting information, understanding what you really want, where you want to go, how you want to get there, and making thoughtful, intentional decisions. So the book is it's part memoir, part case study. I call them Brave Spotlights. So I feature my guests and on my podcast and some of my clients, and then Brave action sections where people can go and do it. And I break down the Brave Method in all of those ways. So the Brave stands for, it's an acronym. It stands for boundaries, reassessment, reframing, resilience, action and accountability, vulnerability. And if you do those 4 things, you end at the E, which is expand and empower. And it's really a platform. It's not an enter at A and exit at Z, and you're going to get this results method. It is a method for thinking creatively and strategically about anything, whether you're solving problems or planning something new, so that you're getting the life and the results in your life that you want.
That's amazing.
Thank you. I'm very proud of it.
I know. I love how fired up you get when you talk about it. You're just like alive.
Yeah, I feel that way. And it really works. And I use it all day, every day. And I get, I think my favorite thing about my job and about having Brave be my business is that every week I get some call, email, DM from somebody, whether I've worked with them or I've just crossed paths with them, where they've done something that they recognize as brave and they're proud and they want to share it with me. Hey, Heather, I did this thing and it felt so brave. And I really thought you'd be proud. And I wanted to tell you about it. Or look at how I'm out living bravely. Like, it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
the
That's
coolest.
so cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
Do you want to tell us one of those stories of like how you've used that recently?
Actually, I have one that I think is super relevant to you and your show. I was a guest on, do you know Latter-day Lesbian, the ladies from Latter-day Lesbian?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mary and Shelley, good friends. I was a guest on Latter-day Lesbian a couple of years ago, and I'd offered to do some gifted coaching sessions to their listeners. And one of their listeners sent an email and wanted a session. And I was like, absolutely, let's chat. And this woman was coming out of the Mormon religion, coming out in general, going through a divorce, had a trans child, like lots of moving parts. And her biggest dream was to be a writer and to work in HR. But she'd never met anyone in her life that was a professional. She said, I don't know how to do it. I've never seen it done. I don't have mentors. And I said, I have a friend who's a publisher. Let me introduce you to her. And I have a friend who's a director of HR at a large corporation. Let me introduce you to her. So I reached out to both of them and they said, we would love to talk to your friend. No problem. And they did whatever they did. I didn't think anything of it. And I got this message from Chris this week that said, I've been writing about coming out and being in the Mormon church, and I got interviewed on my local radio station for it. And I just wanted you to know I'm out doing the brave thing. And I thought you might like to listen. Chills.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, right. She couldn't have imagined having done that 2 years ago.
Right.
She had nowhere to start. She had no idea. It just reminds us that we don't really know what kind of impact we're going to have. The best that I can do, the best that we can do is show up and give as much as we can and support for the sake of showing up and supporting, not to get anything back, not for a reward. I mean, you know, I have a business and I want to get paid for my work, and I do, but I love to support people. And that's all I want. I want them to go out and do things that they didn't think that they could do before I helped them see a way to achieve it by embracing bravery.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah. That's fun.
What about for you, like personally, what's some way that you've used the brave method?
Oh my gosh.
Little bit.
All the time in every way possible. The most recent, and this is talk about vulnerability, the most recent way I've done that. So I have a coaching membership program. It's a 12-month program filled with small individual cohorts. I've opened cohort doors 5/6. It's part of the story times now. Very well received, amazing people. Everyone who's been in the program for a year has renewed for a second year. Like, they absolutely love it. And I had a certain method for opening the doors and selling and connecting with people. And we had a live launch just about 3 weeks ago that no one came to. That's not true. 9 people showed up, but I needed like 100 people to show up so that I could sell 8 seats, because it's an 8-member cohort, right? And we had an amazing workshop. All of my current members were there. They did the work. The 9 people that were there did the work and loved it, but they weren't the right fit, or just timing wasn't right. So I didn't sell anything. I had this huge launch planned. It was going to be a 6-figure launch. It's going to be great. And nothing happened. And that sucks. And it's embarrassing and it feels terrible. And I spent about a day feeling really sorry for myself. Of course, I knew it was coming. Like, when we started the event and we had no registration, I was like, okay, well, we're just going to do this and see what happens. And then I used, the 3 R's, reassessment, reframing, resilience. And I was like, okay, so what's in this for me? Why is this happening? And what I realized was I hadn't hit a floor, I'd hit a ceiling. What I'd been doing successfully was no longer enough for the ways in which I wanted to grow my business and the IBE program. So I needed to completely rethink how we were going to support people. We're actually switching to a 2-day, it's going to start in January, a 2-day immersive workshop experience with breakout rooms and coaching support and all these wonderful things that I think people will really be impacted by and excited about. And if I'd had a new cohort, I wouldn't have been able to dedicate the time I needed to building this new program.
Mm.
And I realized that I wanted to do some changes in my business and my business structure, hire some new people, reorganize, and I wouldn't have had the mental capacity or the space to do that again if I'd had this new cohort. So this thing that was a quote unquote failure was really an open door to building bigger and better. And so super vulnerability, I went straight onto my group and did a Facebook Live of all these entrepreneurs who I am their coach and they pay me. And I said, let me tell you how this failed and why I'm glad. And how can you apply this to you? And I just used it and worked with it. Reassessment, reframing, and resilience and vulnerability.
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
But all the time, literally every day. What's in this for me? What do I want from this? Boundaries are my favorite topic in the world. They're your key to guilt-free freedom. And I love setting them and communicating them and being like, yeah, no, sorry, I can't do that. That's one of my boundaries. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're running into that ourselves because I'm supposed to be on your podcast and you only record on Tuesdays and I only do podcasts on Fridays. So it's like, how do our boundaries hit each other?
Exactly.
How do we
Well,
figure
and
out
that's a
way
great
forward?
question. And that's actually to have you come in and do a training in the IBE program, which I really want you to do. We can definitely interview you on a Friday. We'll make that happen.
Which is new for me. Let me just say that's big for me because I'm working on that right now.
Yeah.
Like, how do I not acquiesce to whatever someone else needs and bend myself to fit wherever because of scarcity or fear or different things.
Absolutely.
No, like Fridays are the day that I'm going to do this. And
absolutely. And I support that. And I think, you say that to me and I say, I totally respect that. Unfortunately, it doesn't work because this is when my group has this time set aside for these trainings,
right.
But let's do something else together. Right. It's, we find a way to work with it. For me, actually, this week is a really great example. I love setting boundaries. It's important to reassess and reframe them on a pretty consistent basis. Are they still serving you? I've had plenty of clients who have work hour boundaries that they realized are far more rigid than they need to be. Like, I don't actually have to work 8 to 6 every day. I'm a fucking entrepreneur. Like, I can take off at 4, I can do whatever. I can say that I'm only going to do podcast episode recordings on Friday, like whatever. But also, is that still serving you? Is it still getting you the results that you want? And does it feel good? And I like to say that boundaries should be like a skyscraper. You know how skyscrapers are built to sway a little, because sometimes we want to do something that butts up against our boundaries. We have to decide, is it worth it? So for example, I do not work on the nights where I have my kids. I only have them 50% of the time. In fact, I don't work many nights at all because I don't function very well at night. But I was recently invited to be a guest teacher in a Loyola entrepreneurship program. Well, their class meets at night. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to be in that room. So I bent my boundary because that was their availability. And I wanted to be able to say that I had done that. I wanted to connect with those folks. This week is a great example. I have getting my book over to layout. I also have a deck of manifestation cards that I co-authored with a friend. We're revising and final edit for the guidebook for that. Coming out, website review has to be done by Monday for my new branding and my new website launch, right? All of this shit is happening. And everyone's like, how are you taking care of yourself? I'm very good at taking care of myself. I know when to spend my alone time. I have my morning routine. I say no really easily. And I also want the results from getting these 3 things done quickly, efficiently, and successfully. And so the best way I can care for myself this week is by letting my boundaries go, putting my head down, and getting my shit done. Because next week, I'm going to be right back at it. But I'm going to have a book that's laid out. My Create Brave cards are going to be off to the printer, and my website's going to finally fucking be up. So, you got to bend. You got to be a little bit of a skyscraper to get what you want. If you're super, super rigid, you're going to say no to things that would be beneficial to you. We want to say no to the right things. We want to say yes to the right things. And that's where reassessment really comes into play.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think so many of us have been just in this camp of say yes to everything, like,
Absolutely.
be everything for everyone. And then in that learning curve, it's like, okay, no, I'm going to be boundaried and like have these really, really rigid boundaries. And then it's like finding that middle ground where you're
That's
like,
exactly it.
okay.
Usually you sway all the way to one side and
Mhm.
then you kind of inch your way a little bit closer. I know a ton of people, a ton of queer people who have done that, especially if they've come from super, super religious or strict backgrounds. Like they go all the way
Right.
opposite, as far off their beaten path as possible. And then they kind of inch their way back to, sort of a little bit of a middle ground, a fluid ground. It's kind of fun to watch. We just all learn about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all on a journey. And my big
Yeah,
learning lately has been like not judging any of it as right or wrong,
that's
letting
right.
go of the binaries and just like seeing it.
Yeah.
This is what it is.
Have you read anything or done any of the self-compassion work with Kristen Neff? You familiar with Kristen?
I've been reading Brene Brown's and she quotes her a lot.
Yeah, I love Brene. Her book, Braving the Wilderness, is probably my favorite book. But self-compassion, and I've been doing this kind of work for a really long time. I read Self-Compassion earlier this year, and it literally changed my life.
Hmm.
And this notion of allowing what exists to exist without judgment and still deeming it worthy of comforting. So, a really dumb example, I actually use it in my book, but it's a good one, is a couple months ago. So, Kristen talks about literally like comforting yourself, saying nice things, massaging yourself, holding yourself. And it feels really weird to do, but physiologically, our brain doesn't know the difference.
Right.
If we're touching and loving ourselves or saying
Hmm.
kind words to ourselves or somebody else's, your brain just hears the comfort and the compassion. So I'm in the car with my kid and somebody cuts us off and we almost have an accident. And I was so mad that I was on the edge of road rage. And I very quickly went into self-compassion mode where I was like, it's okay, Heather. It's totally normal to be really angry and scared when someone almost kills you and your child. And I'm like petting myself. My daughter's looking at me like I have lost my fucking mind. She was like, I didn't say anything. And I'm like, I know, baby. I'm just giving myself some self-compassion. She's like, okay. But it worked, right? I like calmed
Yeah.
down. I was safe in the car. Just kind of a funny example of loving yourself really hard
Hmm.
without judgment and
Yeah.
feeling your feelings without judgment.
Yeah. That's so huge.
Mm-hmm.
And what a beautiful example for your daughter to see.
Thank you. She's like, my mom's crazy, but somehow in the back of her head,
Yeah,
I think it'll
she's
stick.
documenting it all. It'll come back to her when she's cut off next time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
awesome.
Well, hats off to you. I think it's so brave to set boundaries and to love yourself without judgment and all of these things you're working on. It's
Hmm.
big, it's big hard work. I always say that it's all very simple, but none of it's easy.
Yeah, totally. And this is a good reminder for me to go back and I want to do Christian Neff's survey on self-compassion.
Yeah. Yes.
I
Find out.
recommend everybody else go find that too. And let's dive into this.
It's really great work. There's a workbook that comes with her book that the exercises are so empowering and so impactful and so awkward and uncomfortable. Things like set up 3 chairs and give yourself a different kind of compassion in each one. You're like, I've
Mhm.
lost my fucking mind, but it really works. It
Yeah.
really works.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So the question I always love to end off with is, what is your next coming out chapter?
Yeah. My next coming, I'm actually really excited about this. My next coming out chapter is a new podcast.
Mhm.
I went to Podcast Movement, which is a huge podcasting conference in Nashville a couple of weeks ago. And on the very first day, I met a guy and we were chatting it up. And I was like, dude, you're going to be my new best friend. Like, I feel this thing. He's like, I feel this thing. That's so weird. Like, we must have known each other in a past life. And then casually we're chatting throughout the week. And I'm like, I've always wanted to start. I mean, I can't release all the details yet, but I've always wanted to start a podcast about this topic. And he was like, oh yeah, we should do that. And now this guy has a podcast network It's a really big deal. He works for a major technology company that has huge celebrity presence. It's very cool. He's got all of the systems in place to really make this a big deal. He's like, yeah, let's do it. And so we've done it. We've set a launch date. We've got a plan. Like, we're getting ready to record. So I'm coming out with which is crazy, with 3 businesses and 4 kids and a partner. And it's insane, with another podcast. But I'm super, super excited about it. So that's what's coming. I'm coming out with the next.
Yeah. I can't
People
wait
are like,
to
how do you
hear.
have time? How do you have time? I'm like, I don't know. You find time for what you're excited about.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear what brave methods you need to use as you step into all that.
100%. Yes. Really good boundaries, really good scheduling, very thoughtful and intentional contracts. What are our plans? I'm a big fan of thoughtfully and thoroughly scheduling your time and making a plan, because otherwise it's just all one big shit show. Like, everything needs to get done all at once. You don't know where to start. You're super overwhelmed. So take a minute and visualize. I call it dreamscaping. Think about what you actually fucking want your life to look like and feel like, and then what are all the buckets and what needs to happen, and give each thing specific time and attention. And if it doesn't fit into one of those buckets, don't fucking do it. There you go. That's my elevator pitch. That's my soapbox.
Done. Mic dropped. Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's so fun to talk to you. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks for listening to the Coming Out Chronicles. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. And if you think it would be helpful for someone else, please share it with them. If you'd like to connect with me, reach out on social. I'd love to support you on the next chapter of your coming out story. Until next time, this is Nancy Shadlock from Centered Life Coaching.